Karen Fabian here, founder of Bare Bones Yoga, and thanks so much for taking a moment to watch my video. So I want to walk you through a framework for learning, and this is going to be a little bit of a grab a seat, sit down, and just kind of open your mind. And it's really an opportunity for you as a yoga teacher to think about your learning path a little differently than maybe how you're approaching it right now. And the catalyst for this came from many years, and especially in the past couple of years, as my program, the Blueprint Learning Program, has increased in terms of the number of teachers that are enrolled in it. I've had a lot more of an opportunity to talk to teachers before they enroll in my program, once they enroll in the program, when I graduate them from the program, and it's given me an opportunity to learn a little bit more about a learning path that really best suits learning for yoga teachers. Now, of course, everybody's different, and that is actually baked into the program, different ways of learning. But more importantly, I'm not really here today to talk to you specifically about my program, but just more about, in general, how we learn. And this can be really helpful if you're out there as a teacher and you're feeling a little frustrated, maybe you're feeling a little lost, like you're not exactly sure what the next step is to take. Maybe you're feeling a little bit kind of like your vision of the yoga teacher you want to be is kind of out there, but it's something that you're not quite sure how to reach. So this will be a really interesting way and really a great way for you to kind of frame things a little bit differently. Now, I have the whiteboard here because I'm going to just draw some of this out so you can see it visually. Now, I know because of the distance I am from the camera, it may be a little hard for you to see. There's not going to be a lot of words. I'm going to talk you through it, but I want you to have the opportunity to see some of this stuff written out. So the first thing I want you to think about is a typical learning path. And a typical learning path, and how most people think of it, is getting themselves from point A to point B. And so you can kind of say, this is you over here, right? And you're, at the beginning of your journey. And most people think about learning, and let's kind of frame this, at least for this conversation. We could actually do this, blow it out beyond just yoga teaching. But for this conversation, of course, because my focus is working with yoga teachers, let's focus in on that. So let's say at point A, that's you deciding that you want to become a yoga teacher. And so along that path, you've probably done a number of different things. And depending on where you are in your career at this point, you may or may not have done some of these things. So the first thing, so this is you kind of in the now mode. So the first thing is you probably took or are going to take a 200-hour training. 200-hour training. And so when you're done with that training, what typically happens is you get your RYT status with Yoga Alliance, and you go out and you begin to teach. So now, what if, there's like a next step that you want to take? Maybe it's spurred by your thought that you want to learn more. So typically what you would do is you would do another training, and maybe that one would be a 300-hour or a 500-hour training. Or maybe you do both. Or maybe what I've heard from a lot of teachers is they've taken a 200-hour training again. And so maybe you get through that process and you still feel like there's some learning gaps you have, but you're not exactly sure how to fill them. So then there's like a whole bunch of other things you could do and you might be doing. And they may involve things like buying books or taking local workshops or taking online courses or, watching YouTube videos, right? A lot of yoga teachers I talk to get a lot of their or make a lot of attempts at learning by poking through YouTube, and in many cases, watching videos from teachers they don't even know, right? And so your assumption is all of this is going to get you to some endpoint. And you can kind of think of this endpoint here as, kind of this ideal state. Like you've attained the vision in your mind for the yoga teacher you want to be. Now, what typically happens, and what, again, in my conversations with teachers I've learned, is that what typically happens is there are quite a few obstacles that come up in their learning path. right? It's not just a straight line, free and clear. And I'm going to tell you what some of the most common obstacles are that I hear from yoga teachers. The first one is time. I don't have enough time to devote to my learning. The next one is money. I don't have enough money to invest in my learning. The next one is access to resources. I can't get to a training, I can't take time off, I can't, or maybe I don't even know what resources to access. And then the next one, similar to accessing resources, is just understanding them, right? So you can kind of make a little sub one here, understanding resources. And so I hear this a lot from teachers. I bought this book, it was highly recommended, it's all about sequencing. I don't really even understand it, and there's really nowhere for me to turn because it's just a book. And then other things that I hear from teachers have to do with family and business, right? I can't invest in another training because my family needs me, or my family's needs are XYZ, or my business needs, I'm running a business, and that has needs as well. Now, in addition to these obstacles, I'm going to tell you one of the things that is never ever addressed in teacher training. And I can only actually think of one yoga teacher who's actually blending this into their training, but not even making it specifically a very distinct part. And I'm going to tell you what this piece is about. And again, this is a piece that is almost always missing from teacher trainings. And it has to do with self-limiting beliefs. Now, right out of the gate, if you're starting to feel that this doesn't apply to you, I really want you to try to hold steady, take a deep breath, and stay coachable, right? Because it's when we shut off that essentially we're acting according to our self-limiting beliefs. This doesn't apply to me, I can't learn anything from this is bullshit, that kind of thing. So, I'm going to give you some self-limiting beliefs. And again, guys, I haven't made these up. These are things that I have heard from teachers. And they're things that I've thought myself. Before, I spent a lot of time 3 years ago working with a neuroscience coach to get a handle on my self-limiting beliefs and figure out strategies, not to eliminate them from my life, but to move past them and to recognize them first. So the first one has to do with age. I'm too old, or I'm not old enough. Right? And this is all, again, in the context of a yoga teacher. I can't be successful because I'm too old, or I can't be successful because I'm too young. Experience. I don't have enough experience. I'm not ready. I have heard that so much from teachers. I'm not ready to teach. Another one, time management. I'm not good at managing time, so it's really hard for me to take a training, so I'm not going to invest in one. Another one has to do with expert status. Who am I to be teaching yoga? I don't have enough experience. I don't really have the authority to walk into a room and lead people through a sequence. And the other one has to do with pretending. I feel like I'm pretending. Every time I stand in front of a class, I feel like I'm pretending to be someone I'm not. Right? I've heard that quite a bit. So when you have all these obstacles and you go back to this continuum, all you end up doing is having starts and stops, right? Starts and stops. Now, what this essentially leads to is a whole bunch of different feelings. So you have this path that you envisioned in your mind, but you have these obstacles that you're dealing with that are causing you to lose momentum on the path. And so how do you feel? Well, sometimes you feel confusion, right? You're not sure where to go on your path. That can lead to feeling frustrated. That can also lead to feeling like a lack of focus, right? I'm not sure, just like I said in the very beginning of this video, you take the 200-hour training, you feel like you have a learning gap, and you're like, is that really other option. I'm supposed to take a 300-hour training. Then things start to get a little bit more broad-based, and you start to have a lack of faith. I don't think I'm going to be able to get here. And then ultimately what happens is you abandon your vision. I get a lot of teachers that enroll in my program that are pretty close to just giving up. They're like, this is my last ditch effort. Now, what I want to offer you is a different way to think of your learning path. And it's really based on a concept that's really central to yoga, and that is the concept of a circle, right? So the visualization or the actual shape itself of a circle, joining, right, yoking together, that is yoga. And I want you to think, instead of this, I want you to think of your learning path like this. And in the center of the circle, in the centermost part, is your 200-hour training, right? And your 200-hour training is serving to give you a foundation of sorts, a broad-based exposure to many of the concepts central to yoga teaching. Now, I want you to think of this second layer as specific training on anatomy. And why am I calling out anatomy? Well, because yoga is a movement-based practice. So many, if not all of the teachers that come to me because they're doing this and they're still missing an understanding of this. And at the end of the day, when you don't understand anatomy, there is no way that you are going to be able to accurately share cues. The understanding of anatomy in the context of a movement-based practice is the only way to be able to accurately share cues. And so when you're on this path and you're realizing that this, or maybe you don't even realize that this is lacking, you can end up all the way out here, time, money spent, all of it, and still feel like you have a gap around this skill. Right? Plus, I don't even want to tell you how many self-limiting beliefs teachers have around anatomy. I can't learn anatomy, I'm not science-minded. I can't learn anatomy, I don't retain information. And there's on and on from there. So here, the next layer is specific training on anatomy. That's one of the things that you need. Whether you look, if you want to insist on looking at your pad this way or this way, that's the next phase. Then from there, the next layer out is addressing these self-limiting beliefs, right? It's being willing to look at yourself through the lens of outside in, rather than being so steadfast as to all the things you're not, being open to what's possible for you. And I promise you, even just in a small way, once you start to focus on what's possible for you around these self-limiting beliefs, right? So instead of holding firm to them, asking yourself, what's possible for me here? This will start to shift. This will never shift if these are still the way you're operating from, the way you're seeing the world. And then once you address those self-limiting beliefs, then the outermost concentric circle is really your ongoing work, right? So it becomes just kind of an ongoing process. It's never that you know everything there is to know about anatomy. It's never that you've addressed all your self-limiting beliefs. Yes, you've built the foundation with your 200-hour, then you've built the foundation with specific training on anatomy, right? Then you've started to address your self-limiting beliefs. And then it's ongoing work, right? It's ongoing work, to continue to grow. So I hope this has been interesting for you, and maybe in a small way has helped you shift your attachment to a linear path. And I also really help in a big way. It's helped bring to light some of the self-limiting beliefs that you have, which may be holding you back from being a successful teacher. I also hope that what it's helped you to see is how important specific training on anatomy is. Because without this, our main vehicle as teachers, which is the cues that we use. I don't care how much assisting you're doing, how many one-on-ones you're doing, you know, whether you're teaching restorative or teaching active, you know, vinyasa flow, whether you're a teacher who's in her 60s or a teacher who's in his 20s, the cues are the main way that you're going to be communicating with your students. And so without that, these just can't, they can't be as effective. So I hope this has been interesting for you, right? Now what I want to let you know is that my method of teaching teachers this piece is my Blueprint Learning Program. And a lot of this information I've culled over years of working with teachers, many of whom are probably just like you, where they started out feeling, maybe not specifically these self-limiting beliefs because there's lots of them, but they've worked through a path and they've overcome a lot of these self-limiting beliefs to graduate from the program. So if you're interested in a program like this, just get on my wait list. It's right on my website, barebonesyoga.com, and the next time I open enrollment, I'll let you know. If you have any questions or comments on this, please comment here on the video. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks for your time. Namaste.